All right, welcome in. Happy Tuesday. This is the Cow Guy Close. And yes, I am Scott Shellady, also known as the Cow Guy. And I'm wondering if what's happening in Tennessee right now is just the tip of the iceberg. You know, it kind of hits close to home for me, literally, because it's right around the corner from us here. The Tennessee State Attorney General, Jonathan Skrmetti, he filed the first of its kind consumer protection lawsuit against big bad Blackrock, right? He accuses the firm of making false and misleading claims concerning its ESG strategies. Remember, that's environment, social, and governance strategies. The lawsuit claims BlackRock uses proxy voting to push woke ideology through the halls of corporate America at the expense of returns. And on the one hand, BlackRock says it makes investing decisions aimed at fighting climate change. And on the other hand, the suit claims BlackRock says its only consideration is return on investment. So which is it? It's a case of investors' best interests taking a back seat to BlackRock's ESG agenda, right? Going clean may cost you some green. And yet another example of getting rid of something that works to embrace something that sounds good. BlackRock takes the cake. Now, maybe BlackRock should start a virtue signal hedge fund. That might be a good idea. My next guest has talked about a lot the ESG with us. She brought it up in the first place. Please welcome to the show, Rebecca Walser. We thought this was perfect for you, Rebecca, because you were right on this probably 2 years ago now about ESG sneaking into some of the decisions that corporate CEOs are making, and it's not for the best interests of the shareholders.
You know, Scott, I really have had a problem with ESG from the jump, and I'll tell you why. When you take Finance 101 at university, you are taught that the board of directors has a fiduciary obligation to maximize returns for the shareholders. That is a fiduciary legal obligation to maximize returns for the shareholders. That doesn't mean you have to be unethical. It just means within the constraints of ethicalness, you have to maximize returns. And I never could understand how any group, BlackRock not accepted, could basically say that we have a competing mandate, which is not maximizing shareholder returns, but it is some other political cause such as ESG. And this has always been problematic, but this is the first lawsuit to reduce this requirement to writing and say, explain to us how you're meeting your fiduciary obligation to maximize shareholder returns, because that hasn't changed. And they've just sort of said, well, we're just going to carve this out and do this also. And that is problematic, because if you look at the returns of ESGs, they absolutely are subpar performers in comparison to the overall market. We know that, and that's why a lot of investors are disappointed and pulling back and saying, forget ESG completely.
We've spent, I'm going to say it's trillions of dollars over the last 40 or 50 years trying to go green, trying to get the wind and solar going. And it just hasn't done so. And then I think another great example is the electric vehicles as well. The consumer hasn't embraced it. It just hasn't gotten off the starting line. And yet they're still trying to do it with your money or your votes and your shares. And it just seems to me that if you want to go out there and represent the consumer, or at least your shareholders, it's probably not a good place to start with something that really hasn't worked in the last 40 years.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is that the science has been questioned. And even though the science has been questioned from the very beginning, Scott, nobody has come forward and said, this is the technology equivalent that will replace it. So you have electric vehicles, but we have no electric planes, right? And so when you look at the World Economic Forum and what their new kind of, plan is going forward for the carbon footprint, they want individuals, and you and I talked about this, they want individuals flying less than 3,000 miles a year. That wouldn't even be one trip to and back there and back to New York for me. So this is the thing that is coming, is like, realize the technology is not there to replace what we currently have with fossil fuels. And therefore, what are their constraints? Well, they want you in 15-minute cities that you have to get a pass to travel outside of, and they don't want you flying commercial air. And they want you to go to electric vehicles. If you look at the new Netflix horror film with Julia Roberts, which is called Leave the World Behind, this is a great example. Your whole audience should go watch it. This shows you how they could literally turn over the government within a matter of days. And it definitely shows you that the EV, the electric vehicles, can literally be hijacked and with their self-driving capabilities be routed to basically block all traffic for all roadways. So this is a concerted effort to move us to this. BlackRock has obviously been the leading forefront of that. And if you look at Larry Fink, Larry Fink obviously has a lot of connections with a lot of C-suite CEOs across the world. And basically, Larry Fink went on record and put a letter together and said, we are going to expect you companies that BlackRock is invested in to start tracking your cost of goods sold by carbon footprint and your financials. Because, see, in Europe, they're already doing this. They're already following the FASB standards, which require them to report their carbon footprint on their cost of goods sold. It hasn't happened yet under GAAP, General Accepted Accounting Principles, in America. So Larry Fink, with his power, basically sent a letter and said, we expect you as part of the BlackRock investment community to start preparing for doing this. So they are literally trying to push this forward when the American public is rejecting it.
And just to put a little bit of a cherry on top of that, that was fantastic, by the way, is that just so folks, the viewers know that you could have your hedge, you could have your pension managed somehow by, down the road by BlackRock, right? And you could be a guy that works in an oil field, and they could be working against you with your own capital to put you out of business.
I mean, they are. Let's call a spade, Scott. They are actively trying to push this world to World Economic Forum level carbon footprint requirements, which are totally not modern society. And remember, this goes back to their whole depopulation agenda, that they really think that the Earth is overpopulated. The Earth cannot sustain, in their opinion, 8 billion lives. And so, therefore, they have to reduce the carbon footprint and they have to reduce the humans. And that, we haven't seen that in writing yet, what the plan is to reduce the humans. But that's got to be part of it, because we take up too much. We just produce too much carbon, like the cows.
The carbon they want to get rid of is you. All right. Thank you very much for being on.
It's the truth.
Rebecca Walser, thanks with the Walser Wealth Management Group. Thank you very much, Rebecca. Love having you on. All right. Let's take a look at those stock markets. This is the Dow 30 stocks. It's just